All right, what's up, guys? Episode 20. This calls for some celebration. No, I'm just kidding. But, I always start this off with saying I'm sorry I'm not more consistent, and I'm sorry I haven't been more consistent. And I was thinking about it. I don't know why, man. I don't know why, but I face resistance with doing this podcast. Just putting that out there. But I still do it. I still show up, and that's what really matters. But I'm not gonna lie. Like I wanted to post something, probably like 7 days ago, and like for the past 7 days, I've been kind of mustering over it. And it's funny, we all just kind of face resistance with certain things, and it's really about just continuing to do it. And for me, overall, the podcast is not a difficult thing to do. I think it's easy because I just set the camera up and I do my workout. Like I don't even pay attention to it and just let the camera die because it freaking dies at like 30 minutes all the time. And then I just, think of a good topic or think of whatever's coming to my mind that week or whatever's on my mind or whatever I'm dealing with. And, you know, I talk about it and I talk about maybe how I've overcome it or whatever. And it's not that hard. It's actually fun. I enjoy doing it, but I face resistance nonetheless. So I think it's something, and when we face resistance with something, this has nothing to do with today's topic, by the way, but I was just thinking about it. When we face resistance with something, you realize it's kind of this made up thing in your head. You start to think like, oh, I'm gonna have to talk for 30 minutes, or this is gonna be hard, or I don't know. Like you just make it into this thing that it's not. And as soon as you start doing the thing, whether it's working out or reading or anything, that we usually face resistance to, as soon as you start doing it, it's fine. And you probably enjoy doing it. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy talking to the camera, to myself. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I do enjoy this. I really do enjoy this, and I don't know why I face so much resistance, but I'm actively overcoming that resistance, and you will see more. So rest assured. But today I did want to talk about posture, and there's a lot that goes into that. And just short story, guys, how you can honestly fix and perfect your posture with kettlebells, just kettlebells. And I'll explain by kind of talking about what I think is the pervasive problem. I'll talk a little bit about my life, my story, which I have talked about on this podcast, but more in depth and more in terms of like the posture side and just go a little bit deeper in that. And then what I've done since, over the last honestly 10 years to get to where I am right now and stop feeling miserable, to be quite frank. And it's not like my posture is ever super bad, and it's not like posture, again, is the main focus here, but posture overall is an indication of how you're kind of holding yourself, how your body is holding itself, like what imbalances you have, what tightness, what, lack of strength, all these little things affect your posture. Your posture affects the way you move. The way you move cumulatively will result in injury. Because you're wearing and tearing certain joints the way they're not supposed to be worn and torn. You're not breathing properly. You're not walking properly. All of that. So I'll get into it. If you guys want, to know what I'm doing in the video, I'll put the workout in the description below. It's a great workout, and it goes hand in hand with what we're talking about today. So I highly recommend you doing it. And if you want anything else in terms of, coaching, if you want guaranteed path to get your results, hit the link in the description below and you can apply for coaching with me. I also got my course on there. But at the very least, guys, and I'm not trying to be like, click the link in my bio, just click the link and go join the free Discord. At the very least, it's free. I'm very responsive on there. I talk to the community. You have each other. It's a really cool Discord. If you don't know what Discord is, it's pretty much like Facebook groups and Slack had a baby. And I really think it's cool because, obviously I'm trying to sell stuff because I'm trying to, make a living and not just make a living, but help people. So there is a subscription on the Discord. I obviously have my coaching and my one course, but it's not like I don't offer that, any free value. I'm happy to chat with you guys. I'm happy to offer any advice, just be in the community. You don't have to freaking commit to anything. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, the reason why I say that is because I think a lot of people, in this industry will say, like, join my newsletter, join this, join that. And we all kind of have an aversion because they're like, dude, this guy's just freaking going to blow me up on email trying to sell me. I'm not going to do that. And I want you to know that the community is a safe space. It's just a good place. Like, if you have no intention in spending any money at all, I have no problem. Like, just join it, talk, ask questions. There will be value. And there's also a free 30-day challenge in there. So enough about that. But posture. So I really believe, I don't only believe, I actually would go so far as to say I know that over 90% of you guys watching, listening to this right now have a bunch of muscular imbalances and not ideal posture. And eventually, if you haven't already, you're going to get injured if you work out or do anything of the sort. You're going to accumulate some sort of pain in your life. And a lot of people, physical pain, and a lot of people will attribute this just to age, right? Like once they get past 35 or 40, oh, my knees hurting, my elbows hurting, just getting older. It's like, no, I shouldn't cuss yet. Um, it's like, no, you're not just getting older, because there are plenty of guys actually in their 60s and 70s who feel just fine and perform like, no, I wouldn't say perform better than a 20-year-old, but could honestly feel better than a lot of 20-year-olds, especially nowadays. So it's not just age, guys. If you have a car and the car is misaligned, like the wheels aren't in proper alignment or whatever, there are certain parts of that car that are going to bear more wear and tear than other parts of the car that shouldn't be bearing that wear and tear if everything was evenly, set. And that's basically the same way with our bodies. Is we might not notice these things while we're younger, but as time goes on, it's not necessarily just age. It's just time. You spend a certain amount of time moving a certain way, not moving properly. Maybe your shoulder's not in the right position. Maybe there's weak parts of the shoulders. There's some compensation going, some grinding happening on the joint that shouldn't be happening. At first, you might not feel that. Maybe in your 20s, you might feel it as a little kink. Oh, I'm fine. And then in your 30s, it turns into something, and you just attribute it to the fact that you're in your 30s and you're no longer in your 20s, rather than attributing it to the fact that you've been in that position and been doing those things, like with your body, for a decade or more. That's what's wrong. And if you were to fix it, your body's actually quite remarkable at healing itself. And this is what we're not told. This is what we're not told, not sold, not anything. We go to the doctor, let's say you have shoulder pain. That's what I went through. So I'll just tell you my story. Let's just skip to my story. But first, I want to tell you guys that the reason why most of us are experiencing this, which is, our bad effects on posture, which is, it all comes from, first off, lack of movement, and more specifically sitting, chronic sitting. And this starts by the time we're kids. By the time we're kids, we start sitting a lot. When we sit a lot, it obviously ruins everything in our body. Like it starts to shorten certain muscles, your glutes get weak, your core gets weak, you're used to being in this position to the point where standing becomes uncomfortable, sitting in a deep squat becomes uncomfortable. And obviously you don't really feel this as a kid, but it starts when you're a kid. You start sitting, and as your ego starts developing, you start to become more rigid. You start to maybe hold your stomach in because you're starting to worry about people thinking about your stomach being bloated out. So you start to restrict your stomach. And all of this actually, and this is huge, guys, sitting in the development of the ego, as crazy as that sounds, and what we do in result of that development to ego starts to actually result in a defective diaphragm. And when your diaphragm does not work properly, the diaphragm is pretty much your primary breathing muscle, then you're not able to establish what's called, I don't want to get too technical here, but you're not able to establish what's called, perfect intra-abdominal pressure. When you don't have that intra-abdominal pressure that's established by a perfectly working diaphragm, you have basically weak points in the core of your body. And these weak points will eventually kind of give in, give in, give in, resulting in poorer posture, weak links in the kinetic chain, and a recipe for injury and disaster. So, lack of movement, chronic sitting, the development of the ego, and the hindrance of the full functioning of the diaphragm, and finally, not to mention, our inflammatory food. The inflammatory food if you have back pain, for example, you have to realize how close is your digestive system to your spine? It's right there. It's right there. So if you're eating inflammatory foods and inflaming your gut, what do you think that's doing to the surrounding musculature, right? You might even be turning off certain muscles just because your gut is so inflamed, which leads to compensation, bad posture, recipe for disaster. So it's pretty much our modern way of living is slowly killing us and taking away our natural kind of primal being, which is the ability to move, breathe, fully and deeply, sit in deep squats, stand for a long time, walk for a long time, and do this all pain free and not feel like you have like tightness and like a weight on your shoulders, quite literally. And that's how I felt literally growing up, guys. Like I grew up playing tennis and I wasn't the most athletic kid. Not that I wasn't athletically inclined, I was just lazy. I would just rather play video games. I'd rather eat sugar and play video games and watch cartoons all day than do anything. And when I did play sports because my parents made me, like tennis, I used to complain a lot. And I used to complain about like my back, my elbow, my wrist. My elbow and my wrist when I played tennis as a kid used to bother me a lot. And my parents would honestly think I was faking it. They wouldn't even take me seriously because they're like, "You're a kid. What are you talking about?" Like my mom used to say something like, "I didn't even notice my body until I was in my 30s. I didn't even know it was there. It was just perfect. Or like it was just fine." And that obviously didn't make me feel good. The fact, first of all, my parents didn't believe me. And then now I'm being classified as this like broken, senile kid. I'm like, am I okay? Is there something wrong with me? And now I know, looking back at my super unhealthy lifestyle as a child, and it's not my parents' fault. A lot of this stuff, guys, we're just kind of learning about it. Like when I was a kid back in like, the 1990s, early 2000s, eating Cheerios for breakfast and eating Lucky Charms for breakfast, that stuff was still considered good and like recommended to get your whole grains and all that BS were fed. And I was the type of kid who wouldn't even eat the full cereal. I would go just for the charms and just like eat sugar, sugar, sugar. I'd barely eat meat. I'd eat a lot of rice, and a lot of yogurt and a lot of sugar. That was my diet as a kid. And nobody put two and two together. You go to a doctor, they don't even think about your diet. Blah, blah, blah. And I'm talking when I was a kid, right? So if only my parents knew that, hey, this kid's eating way too much fucking sugar, and he doesn't move at all until he plays tennis, which, maybe he didn't warm up for whatever. He's sitting playing video games all day and eating sugar and then going to the tennis courts and telling me his joints hurt. Hmm. You know? So back, obviously, if I were to get off the sugar, eat a less inflammatory diet, I would have probably not felt that way. But I'm just setting the stage of literally how I used to grow up. So I grew, and looking at me today, a lot of people come after me on TikTok saying, "Oh, his genetics, blah blah blah." I have no like genetics, like like my genetics, if anything, worked against me. Like I was a skinny fat, you know, nerdy kid, like like kind of sixth grade, right? When I hit sixth grade, um, my dad told me, basically, my dad was like, "You're getting fat, and that's not okay. Men cannot have stomachs." Like he literally like looked me point blank and said that. And my mom got mad. She hated that, but I to this day love that because if that never happened, I honestly don't know if I'd be who I am today. Because when he said that, it hit me so hard. I'm like in sixth grade, like this is where ego is really developing. I'm starting to like get, like girls and all that stuff and want attention. And now my dad's telling me I'm fat. And like that's not how a man should be. So I'm like thinking this to myself, like I am a pudgy little loser. So literally in sixth grade, I started to develop the mindset that I want abs. Like I want to look good. I didn't think about like health or wellness. We didn't know, right? So I'm not thinking diet or anything. So I just started doing like sit-ups and blah, blah, blah. So that's, long story short. So that's where it all started for me, like the fitness adventures, honestly, in sixth grade. So that's why today it might look like, oh, he's just genetically that way. But it's like, I've been working on this since I was in sixth grade. That's 12 years. I'm 28 now. You do the math. It's over a decade. And obviously, and as I will tell you right now, it wasn't like efficient, right? Like I wasn't knowing what I was doing right off the bat. It took me years and years of trial and error, huge setbacks, which I'll get into right now, and a lot of that to get to where I am today, right? So long story short, so I wanted to correct all of this. I wanted to, I was sick of my joint pain and being like a little skinny fat and stuff like that. So I started going to the gym and working out. Like this is later too. This is like in high school now, right? So now we're in high school. When we start high school, we kind of want a new, fresh image of ourselves, right? So I was honestly trying to recreate myself. I was like, middle school, I spent eating Skittles and cookies and stuff like that all day, and I realized, and this is actually pretty cool for a high schooler to think like this, but I was literally a ninth grader, and I was like, I have to stop eating sugar. My teeth are too yellow. I need to whiten my teeth. So I whitened my teeth. I cut out all sugar and like started working out. And obviously started seeing amazing results. People started noticing. People started asking, "What am I doing?" Blah blah blah. Um, but I was just, still uneducated as hell, just starting in the gym. So, I started working out, and then what I didn't realize though was that all of these problems that had been festering since I was a child, like all the joint pain I told you about, all of this stuff wasn't just going to poof disappear overnight, right? These are things that you have to work on. I never worked on it. So I just got into working out and worked out. And then eventually I developed a shoulder injury. And I've talked about this a lot on this podcast. If you haven't, heard, if you have heard already, I'm sorry. If you haven't, whatever, but I'll go through it quick. So I developed a shoulder injury and I started to have pain kind of in the back of my shoulder. And it was really accentuated with pressing movements. So now going into college, I started to develop this shoulder pain, but just ignored it, because at that point, I was so, I wanted to be the guy. I wanted to look a certain way and I didn't want to let go of that. So I was not going to just stop working out and correct my shoulder or whatever. I was just like, this will go away. I don't even know what I was thinking, but, I just ignored it. And it got worse. And, going into college, I wanted to prove things to people. Like I wanted to show people I was stronger. I wanted to show off to the seniors and stuff because, you know, I had a big ego. I was the gym bro that I talk about all the time. Um, no sort of stretching, mobility, yoga, no consideration for that. Just kind of powering through lifting, and when it came to diet, that was even worse. Like you know, I was under the gains bro mentality. So I would just lift weights, lift weights, lift weights, eat a bunch of food, eat a bunch of food. No thought into what that food was. It's all okay, right? It's all just going straight to my muscles somehow. So that that was my thoughts. So the shoulder got worse and worse and worse to the point where it really started to move from just my shoulder into my neck, and that's when it got like really like depressing, honestly, because I stopped being able to do anything, like any sort of weightlifting, cut it out. Couldn't even do push-ups, couldn't even do pull-ups. So weightlifting, body weight training was just out of the window. So I just started doing a lot of cardio and doing all this cardio, because I was still just kind of addicted to working out. I burned through any amount of muscle that I had built from, high school, early college. All of it was gone. I swear on my life, I burned through all of it. Like to the point where I was super skinny. To the point where I would see people from high school and they would be like, dude, what happened? And I'd be like, screw you. I don't want to talk about it. So because my ego again was identified with, having some muscle, looking good. But all of that was gone and I couldn't rebuild it. I couldn't. My shoulder was just debilitating. So I kind of went on a downward spiral at that point, started getting really into drugs and alcohol and all that type of stuff in college. And then, I cleaned up my act about a year or so later and, started getting back into fitness and health. And I just, the shoulder was just still not there. And I was like, dude, I need to fix this. So I went to the doctor. And of course, the doctor has no solution. Like, there's no, you go to a doctor and you hope that they're going to be like, hey, here's a plan of action, or I don't know what you hope for, but I was hoping he could help me, and he just sent me to physical therapy for 8 weeks. Did that, didn't work, and came back to him, and he said it's time for surgery. I'm like 22, 23 years old at the time, and he just that's his protocol: 8 weeks of physical therapy and surgery. Not like you know, not. I'm not even gonna get into it, but doesn't consider anything about diet, doesn't consider anything about more just simple things like hanging. If somebody had taught me hanging before I got the shoulder surgery, I probably would not have needed the shoulder surgery. And there's a book on this. A doctor, an orthopedic surgeon, wrote a book on how he saved hundreds of patients from shoulder surgery just by hanging. But anyways, I had the surgery. It was not successful. After the surgery was unsuccessful, I started doing more research into more so like natural healing. At this point, I had gone down the spiral of drugs and alcohol. I had, lost any amount of muscle that I had. I'd honestly, at the time, I lost all my friends. Like, it was a huge pivotal point in my life. So I started to go down this journey of like learning about natural kind of, I don't even know how I got into this, but I started to, long story short, get into like yoga, qigong, which is kind of like a variation of tai chi. And like literally anything that I could do. I wanted to heal myself through movement. And I something told me it was possible. I was just listening to all the right people, I was reading the right stuff, and it led me down this path. So I started to religiously practice yoga. Like it became my new addiction. And through that, I felt a lot of relief. I opened up my body and I started to correct these muscular imbalances. So back to when I was talking about when I was a kid, never addressed any of that. I finally started to address this stuff. I finally started to open up my body, address the imbalances, all this little stuff. And when I was going down this yoga journey and qigong and all of these kind of physical practices, I saw them as just that, physical practices. So you'll notice that when you go to a yoga class, when you learn qigong, all of this stuff, breathing is a huge, crucial component to this. Something that I just completely ignored, like willingly ignored. Like I remember like yoga teachers would be like, take a deep breath in. I'd just be like, shut up. I'm just here to stretch and move and get stronger. Um, until, it hit me one day. I was sitting in class and I took a deep breath and I finally like breathed into my like used my diaphragm fully. I don't know what happened, but something happened and the breath went down to my belly and I just felt all of this opening up in my core, like my spine, the all around 360 degrees. And I was literally sitting in statistics class. I'll never forget this. Junior year of college, statistics class. I'm sitting in there and I take a deep breath and I literally was like, "What the fuck was that?" Like it felt as if I had just finally moved things around which have not been moved in years. And with this came this rush of blood, and I felt this like blood pumping in my lower back. And I haven't really accentuated this much, but my lower back was one of the worst issues that I've ever experienced. Like aside from my shoulder, the lower back and the reason why my shoulder was messed up was because my hips were out of alignment, causing this lower back pain, ultimately traveling up to the shoulder because everything is connected. So my lower back was horrible. Even when I was lifting weights in the gym, I could never squat or deadlift or do anything like that because my back hurt. So I could never even work my legs. That's why I used to bike a lot. Anyways, um, so I kind of lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, we're back. So I took that deep breath and all the blood started rushing and I feel this kind of pumping in my lower back. And at that moment I knew this breathing shit is real. This stuff is real. My body is effed up. It was almost like I could feel how fucked up my diaphragm was and my breathing mechanics overall were by taking that breath. And I was like, I need to fix this. So then I got really into actually breathing while doing these practices and just even more into yoga and all of this stuff. And long story short, it worked. It helped a lot. My shoulder pain was not coming from my shoulder because unless you've been in like some traumatic accident or injury, like where you fell on your shoulder, you dislocated it or something like that, if you have shoulder pain or pain in your joints that came out of almost nowhere, it seems, it is because you're wear and tearing the tissue in the joint with repetitive motion, most likely, while the joint is not in its proper position, while your body's not moving as it properly should. So once you address the underlying problem, you restore the natural movement, the pain goes away, your body's able to heal and recover itself. Trust me. But again, if you had a car accident or something like that, that's different. Then you actually have to probably get surgery, repair that stuff. But these repetitive type of issues are very, very reversible. And a lot of people, I think, don't know that. So, anyways, I was still, now that I had fixed myself, I wanted to build muscle, I wanted to get into better shape and all that. So I started getting into body weight exercises, calisthenics to start building some muscle. That started working. And then I wanted to, still kind of on this journey to not only, because everything didn't just go away. I still had these imbalances, and I still honestly do today that I'm working on, and they've gotten so much better. But it's there today. And so I was still working through all of this, but I still wanted more. I was like, this isn't complete yet. I'm missing something. So I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to me revealed so much to me. It revealed where I'm lacking in my fitness. You know, overall, like cardio, explosiveness, explosive endurance, you know, strength endurance, all of these different things that reveal itself in Jiu-Jitsu. It really opened my mind. And then, long story short, I got into kettlebells. So why I think kettlebells are really what you need to fix your posture and fix all of the stuff that I just told you about. And I wish somebody told me this a decade ago, is because the kettlebells address everything that we just talked about. So all of this that forms in your posture, let's say it starts with your gut. Obviously you need to correct the way you eat. That's another story. But in terms of the physical, why kettlebells are so good is because it's basically like, if you just get into weightlifting, you're most likely going to hurt yourself, if you have any of these imbalances, which again, most likely you do, or if you don't breathe properly, all that stuff. With the kettlebells, it's almost like you're unifying yoga, weightlifting, and like cardio training all into one. So you kind of get everything that you need, and you need all of those things to correct your posture. You can't just stretch. You can't just, do these passive things and open up your body. You have to stretch and strengthen, stretch and strengthen. And most of the time, stretching and strengthening is very boring. You think like physical therapy, exercise, blah, blah. But kettlebells, why they're so attractive and why I think they're the solution to freaking all of our freaking modern day problems in terms of our health and fitness is, they they not only give you a way to fix your posture through, strengthening all the weak links in the kinetic chain, mobilizing the stiff links in the kinetic chain, and improving your overall cardiovascular system, but it's in a fun way. It's in a way that you're actually getting a workout, you're getting stronger, you're getting more explosive, and you're changing the way your body looks, slowly but surely. And it's also quick, super low barrier to entry if you start with a simple workout like 100 swings, 10 get-ups, which is an amazing practice to accomplish everything that we want to accomplish based on today's conversation. Um, and not only that, when it comes to the breathing aspect, like you see me doing swings here, when you learn how to swing properly and sync your breathing, breathing in as you go down, sharp exhale as you come up, you start to sync your breathing with this movement under load. So you start to load up these muscles, like the upper respiratory muscles up here, your neck, your shoulders, all this are under load. So you force your diaphragm to work harder, which corrects the diaphragmatic breathing even quicker than you would if you were just trying to correct it without loading yourself with weight. So the kettlebells offer a way for you to make gains, make progress in your fitness while healing your body and correcting your posture with doing two simple movements, actually. This is your prescription: 100 swings, 10 get ups. Do that every day. Every day. The first week, will you be sore? Yes. The second week, no. You'll adapt. It'll be easy. What about rest and recovery? Don't worry about that. You'll adapt and it'll get easy and you can recover. And then at a certain point, once you're completing this easy, let's say after 30 days, move up 4 kilograms. Same thing. Then move up 4 kilograms. Same thing. And then obviously you can add more to that plan. And that's where you can hit me up. And we can customize a great plan for you to hit your goals. Not only fix and correct your posture, but keep it there and get you much more stronger, start to build a lot more muscle in a functional and safe way, and get you cardiovascularly in the best shape you've ever been in your life, hands down. So I think that's it for now. I think that was good. Hopefully that wasn't too all over the place and that was valuable. But yeah, guys, I sincerely think that this is a pervasive problem and we need to fix it. So peace out.